Welcome to what we call New Book Look. My name is Sue McCleaf-Nespeca from KidLit Consulting, and I'm doing this for Pennsylvania today, the Commonwealth Libraries of PA. I am going to first highlight on this particular tape, I'm going to be highlighting books from 2017. All the books I'm talking about have received many favorable reviews, so you can feel good about adding them to your library collection. And it's going to be a mixture of books from babies on up through senior high. So the first one is Charlotte. You'll notice that she is a little scientist. Charlotte is no ordinary rabbit. She's a very serious scientist. She loves to solve problems. Her problem right now is her family is very, very huge. Her burrow is tiny, and she has no room to conduct her experiments. So she's going to use scientific method to try to solve her problem, to answer the question, how can I get some more space around here? So the text is very science-laced. It would be good for classes to explain like the scientific method. So it's also one you might want to recommend to teachers. This next book, a boy called Bat, his name is actually Bixby Alexander Tam, or Bat for short. Now, Bat has autism, so I think that's really good to know, to have some books with kids who have some, different conditions like this, like autism. He has a very high need for structure, and anything that happens out of the ordinary kind of causes a lot of anxiety for him. His mother's a veterinarian. She comes home late from work one day, and Bat becomes really panicked, but she has a good reason. There was a mother skunk who unfortunately did not survive a car accident, and she brought the kit along home, the little baby skunk, and Bat, who himself wants to be a vet someday, tries to find a way to convince his mother that he wants to keep it as a pet. There's a lot of humor to the novel. There's short chapters. And I think it's really good to, like I said, kids with have challenges like autism are not so often shown in books, and I think that's good to have in this book that's both funny and very thoughtful. Now, I did not know until like a couple weeks ago that this was going to be a series. So for spring 2018, there is a sequel, Bat and the Waiting Game. I just thought I'd throw that up so you could see that one. Okay, here we're back to science again. Think of these books a little bit like Ms. Frizzle on her magic bus, okay? This is, the guy who wrote them is, I have not seen the show, but maybe you have. It's PBS's Design Squad and Design Squad Nation. So he's launching this new book series, again, all science related, STEM's kind of big. And there are two of them. As you can see, there's one in the solar system and one in the water cycle. I like the fact that the kids are a very diverse group of kids in this class. Nate is the main one. He's like the daredevil scientist. And they like to go to the Science Museum on Saturday mornings, and they find out that it can be transported to other worlds, and that's where they find out about the water cycle, solar system, or whatever else is going to come up in this series. It's good for science vocabulary and science concepts, and of course, again, STEM-based. I can't believe I have so many science books here at the beginning. This is not going to keep up all day, but this is another one. This was actually Molly Bang. This is part of her Sunlight series of science picture books. The first one she did was called My Light. This one is how the sun moves water around the Earth. It's kind of an interesting concept, how water is moved around planet Earth. And she makes a point of the fact that the amount of water on Earth remains the same, but we have 7 billion people now using it. So the balance is shifting, the planet is warming. It's a lot for the kids to understand. There's large illustrations that support the text, I think, in a very good way. Okay, this book actually won a Caldecott honor, so you might already have it. It also won a Coretta Scott King Author Award, but I wanted to mention it just in case you didn't. This is a concept that I didn't really know because I'm not African American, so I don't know, I can't necessarily relate to this, and it was very interesting to me. It's called Crown, an Ode to the Fresh Cut. As you can see, it's a picture book, and it's all about, it's a really wonderful book, probably one of the best that have come out for a long time for young black boys. Because it talks about how when they go to the barber shop and get the fresh cut, whether it be a flat top or cornrows or locks or the classic wave, whatever it is, it gives them such a high feeling of self-esteem. They're like walking on tiptoes when they get their fresh cut. So it's really kind of a neat book about this experience, and like I said, it won numerous awards. I'm sorry, give me 1 second here to kind of organize my books. Give bees a chance. I actually had a bee expert look at this book to make sure everything was accurate. It's cute, it's done with humor, it's kind of like a picture book. It's maybe a little bit of a long text, but honestly, one of the things, I'm going to stress this maybe a couple times today, is the importance of maybe occasionally using a nonfiction book in your storytime program. That's something that maybe not a lot of people do, but it's something that we're encouraged to do by Susan Newman, who is an early literacy expert in the nation. She helped with write the manuals for the Every Child Ready to Read project, if you're familiar with that. She really strongly encourages us to use like a nonfiction book often. So I know that this is a little bit long. I'll show you. You might not be able to read it word for word. Well, that, of course, the pages I opened are short. But I really think it might be something you could share part of it, if you're doing something on insects or bees or whatever. But this is the same woman who wrote I'm Trying to Love Spider books. That's cute. So give bees a chance. It's just filled with all kinds of fun facts. I'll read a couple on the back here. Honeybees have hair on their eyes. They communicate by dancing, and an average queen bee can lay up to 2,000 eggs in one day. So that's pretty incredible. Tumble and Blue actually got 8 starred reviews from 8 different reviewing sources, so that's can't get too much better than that. And by the way, you'll see in the list the grade levels, or what recommended grade levels. This is by Beasley. 2 friends who both seem cursed in some way or the other join forces because they want to try to alter their destinies. Blue is the name of the one child. He's a 12-year-old boy. He has a lifelong history of losing everything at everything he tries. It runs in his family. He meets this girl. He goes to stay in Georgia. He meets this girl who comes to town, and she's one of those people who wants to try to rescue or help everyone. So their paths cross. It's a highly engaging story about the power of friendship, family curses and blessings, and actually what it means to be a hero. A nice read there. Far from the Tree actually is a National Book Award winner. So that tells you how important it is. We see the sticker there. And this is definitely a book for older kids because it hits into topics like adoption, teen pregnancy, etc. One of the reviewers said, now I have never watched this TV show, and I think I'm the only person in the United States of America who has not watched it. So you will be able to relate to what I'm going to say next, which I can't relate to. They said it's perfect for people who watch NBC's show called This Is Us. Are you familiar with that show? I've never watched it, so I don't know anything about it. But it says it's sort of on that vein, which I don't know what that show's about, so that doesn't tell me a whole lot. I will tell you what I know about the book. Grace was an only child. She was adopted at birth. She finds herself placing her own daughter up for adoption, and she begins searching for that family that she's never known. She soon discovers that she's a middle child. She has a younger sister who's kind of a loudmouth, an older brother who spent his entire life in the foster care system. As she tries to move forward from the loss of her daughter, she begins to bond with these siblings who she finds have hardships of their own. And they find themselves turning to each other and learning that family can come in a lot of different forms. Again, it's kind of a tale of love, loss, and self-discovery. Again, a National Book Award winner. Okay, this is just one of my favorites from last year that I personally would share in a story time. Some of you might not be comfortable doing this. I'm going to read this one just about the whole way through because I find it funny. Of all the days I dread, not one can compare to the day that we shop for new underwear. I'm just fine with no undies at all, or the undies I have, though they are a bit small. So what if they're old? So what if they're torn? Who cares that the elastic's completely outworn? These are my undies, a sweet work of art. Snap! Uh-oh. My undies just fell apart. Do you have a small towel or maybe a leaf? I thought that no undies would be a relief. Turns out it feels just a little bit cold and a little exposed and a lot to behold. Okay, we'll go shopping for new underwear, but which ones will we get? I really don't care. Now, I love the fact that we're going to Undie World. Welcome to Undie World. Leave it to my mom, because only she'd find a whole store devoted to just the behind. By the way, if you haven't noticed, this is done in rhyme. I think it's kind of cute. Put down those undies. Those aren't the ones. Those undies aren't worthy of dressing these buns. No polka dots, no shooting stars, no checkerboards, no racing cars, no ice cream cones, no tiny whales, no rainbow hearts, no sailboat sails. These are too long. These are too short. These look like a diaper. These look like a skirt. These are too boxy. These are too tight. These are too clingy. These glow in the night. Come on already. Can't you just see there are no new undies just perfect for me? Please leave me here in my undie-less slump. I guess there is nothing just right for this rump. Hang on a second. What's that on the rack? Behind all the rest, hung way in the back. They look just like mine. And they fit like a glove. The moment I saw them, my tush fell in love. Gasp. Do you know what? These are the ones. It's like these new undies were made for my buns. I love my new undies with all of my heart. I'll wear them until they too fall apart. We'll take 7 pairs. No, make it 18. They're the most monstrous undies this bun has ever seen. And when brand new undies are made just for you, there's something important you really must do. The new undies pose. The new undies dance. The new undies walk. The new undies stance. I just love my new underpants. Now, I have to tell you, thank you, I actually wrote in my book an ending to the story because the ending I gave you is not the ending that's in the book. Do you want to hear the ending? I'll read now what they have. The new undies pose, the new undies dance, the new undies walk, the new undies stance, and scene is how they end it. Yes, exactly. And what? And scene. I changed it to rhyme and said, I just love my new underpants, which rhymed. Why do they say scene? Quite frankly, I blame the editor in this book. You're supposed to have known that this was like a filmed event. So scene is a term. Makes no sense. No kid will ever pick up on that. That will ruin the whole book. So just do what I did and change the ending. I will read it to you, the ending again. The new undies pose, the new undies dance, the new undies walk, the new undies stance. I just love my new underpants. So just change the ending. Because I was reading, I thought, ew, that's weird. And I thought, oh, I love this book. I don't want to lose it just for that. So I just changed it. Okay, how many of you know the songwriter Laura Berkner? She's done a lot of CDs. Do you remember her? We are the dinosaurs marching, marching. We are the dinosaurs. What do you think of that? Okay, so she made it into a book. So if you want to do a dinosaur story time, here's the book. There are some asides in the book that if I were sharing it with kids, I would not be reading because you just lose the flow of the story. I would just be reading the main text. One-on-one, maybe it's better to have that. So anyhow, and evidently this is a thing she's going to be doing now because her second one came out called Pillowland. That also came out last year. And that would be good for like a nighttime story time. Okay, this is Frederick Douglass. And this is, I think I have 2 books if I remember today on him. This is for the older kids, like grade 7 up, actually all the way up to 12. And there's no reason why an adult couldn't even read this book. Tanya Bolden, who wrote it, has won different awards before. You know, so often we think of him as a slave who escaped and he turned abolitionist. But he did so much. Not only was he a great orator, but he fought for freedom, racial justice, even women's suffrage. He was an author, a newspaper owner, a lecturer, Underground Railroad conductor, Union Army recruiter, and he also was an advisor to the president. That's not known by a lot of people. To say that a president would be listening to a black man and his advice at that era is kind of unbelievable. So, well written, well done, and a figure I think that kids should know, or older kids should know about. This is another book that might be for, I'd say, middle school up. Survivors Club, the true story of a very young prisoner of Auschwitz. I'm sorry, it's kind of hard for me. When I was coming here today, I was listening to CNN and I heard about, I won't mention his name, but you might have heard it in the news, of a guy who said that the Sandy Hook killings of all those kids was not even, never happened, it was just staged. I have a hard time understanding people like this. There are people that say the Holocaust never existed. I'm like, how can you even begin to say something like that? Well, the guy who wrote this book, that is him, in the picture here, this is him. And he saw this picture, he knows, it was him. But the reason he wrote this book was because he got so angry hearing about how people didn't believe in the Holocaust. And he wanted to say, look, this is me, I was there, and that's what the book is about. He lost a lot of his family. His grandma lived. He was in a concentration camp for a while. They ended up, the remainder of the family that was left ended up escaping to America. It's just an excellent thing about that whole period of our history. So again, I highly recommend that for the older kids. Excuse me. Older Than Dirt, a kind of sort of biography of the Earth, written by Don Brown. Now, Don Brown does these things. He's done some history books before. They're kind of like a graphic format, so that might be good for reluctant readers to fall into this graphic format. He really talks about 14 billion years of the Earth's development, from the Big Bang to the planet's origin, to the appearance of life, etc. He gives this whole overview. And I think, again, it's done in a graphic format, so I don't know how much kids could necessarily use it for science, but I think it could be used as a beginning research source. And of course, it's going to be a lot of fun to read. I really like this book by Shane. Not So Different, What You Really Want to Ask About Having a Disability. Shane was born with a disease called spinal muscular atrophy. And it means he has to use a wheelchair all the time. And what he does is, this is like a whole book of questions, like questions he's often asked. Like, what's wrong with you? How do you do things? Can you climb stairs? He talks about how it affects his body, how his parents and brother have to help him with everything, including brushing his teeth even. There's a lot of photographs, and I just think it's good for kids. And let me just open up so you get to see a little bit of it. He talks about how he needs help with almost everything. This is his family. So here are the questions. What do they help you with? How do you eat? How does your chair work? Explains all that. You can see how this would be good to have, I hope. Can you climb stairs? Can you drive? Do people ever make fun of you? That's the hard page to read. Occasionally, he says, it hurts my feelings, because if they knew me a little better, they would see that I'm not really so different. So I just think it's the kind of book we really, really need. This is another one that won some awards, 12 Days in May. It's about the Freedom Ride in 1961. The 13 original Freedom Riders, as they attempted to make their way from Washington, D.C. to New Orleans to celebrate the 7th anniversary of the Brown versus Board of Education. Now, even though it's the anniversary, the 7th anniversary, on their way south, they were still treated with total disrespect. They had to still use segregated seating, facilities, and as they went further and further, they were attacked and beaten. It's kind of an incredible tale. Now, it won a Cybert Award. That's the gold seal they're seeing there for informational books. Jason Chin, I guess I don't have this one here. It must be over there. I was going to show you, and I forgot to bring it here. But the only thing you're not going to like about this book, it has a gatefold. You know what I mean by a gatefold? There's pages that And a lot of times they're hard, the kids, But he's showing the Grand Canyon. How can you not have a gatefold for the Grand Canyon? This is another book that won some awards. It was a Cybert honor. And it's just everything you'd ever want to know about Grand Canyon. It looks like a picture book, but I have to admit, it's probably for just a little bit of a higher reader. It's not necessarily for preschool. It's for a higher reader. It can really even go up to fourth, fifth, however high grade, elementary and even middle. But it's very well done, all about the Grand Canyon. Here's one that if you can afford to have some books on a shelf somewhere that maybe don't necessarily circulate to use in story time, this is the one. It's called I Saw Anaconda. It's cumulative. It's lift the flap. Here's why you probably won't want to circulate it. Pages like this, and there's a gatefold there too, and things like this. I know. Every time I show it, people are like, oh my gosh, no. But I want to tell you, you're going to love sharing it in a story time, because it's like, I know an old lady who swallowed a fly, but it's I saw anaconda. So you can sing it. I saw anaconda swallow a skink. It slid down her throat before I could blink. She swallowed the skink to catch the tick. So you get the idea. It made her tummy hop and kick. Will she be sick? So it would be fun to share, but again, it's probably not good for circulation. I know when I was a practicing librarian, I had some of those kind of books back behind, like on a storytime shelf. Here's another one for storytime, Old MacDonald. There are so many Old MacDonald books. I'm like, when are they going to stop? I'm going to show you at least 3 today. This is by Jane Clark. Again, storytime. Instead of ending E-I-E-I-O, it goes, and on that farm he had a tractor. He loved things that go. And I'm not sure if I love people who mess with songs, but there it is. It's large pictures, so that's good for group sharing. And it is the songs. I think kids will like it. My favorite to this day was one that came out a year or two ago called Old MacDonald Had a Truck. I'm going to come back to this book when I talk about the spring 2018 book, so I've got to put it aside so I don't lose track of it. This is still my favorite redone Old MacDonald. But that came out a couple years ago, so I can't really talk about that one. Okay, here's Andrew Clements. He's done so many school stories. This is about 6th grader Alec. He's a bibliophile. This is really cute. He would rather read, like when his teachers are talking, he's kind of sitting there with a book open, reading, instead of listening to the teachers, the kind. So that gets him in a lot of trouble. And he's forced to join this after-school program. He has to pick a club. He doesn't want any of the clubs. All he wants to do is sit and read. He didn't want any of those stupid clubs. So he decides to start his own club. And the club, he says, no one will ever want to join. He calls it the Losers Club. No one will want to join it because all you do is just sit alone and don't talk to anybody and read. Much to his horror, it becomes the most popular after-school club ever. So book lovers and reluctant readers will enjoy the characters. It's really cute. There's a lot of titles mentioned in here, like famous children's literature titles. In the back of the book, they list, which books it comes from, etc. So it would also be something you could read aloud. Like if teachers are looking for a read aloud in the classroom, this would be one that they could do. Before She Was Harriet is about Harriet Tubman. Now this is by Lisa Klein Ransom and James Ransom. He, of course, has won a lot of different awards, particularly Coretta Scott King Illustrator Awards, etc. It's all about Harriet Tubman's accomplishments to life. It's done like in a poetic text, very vivid, beautiful watercolor images. She was a suffragist, a general, a spy, a nurse. Talks all about how she was a conductor on the Underground Railroad. I know that you might already have a lot of Harriet Tubman books, but this one's very well designed, and it kind of has a unique approach. I think if you can afford it, I would definitely go one more. This book, I'm not going to completely have time to talk about. I wish I could read it the whole way through. It is hilariously funny. This is Brian Collier. He's never done an I Can Read book before. Now, this is one of those books. You do know that the Elephant Piggy books are done now. Mo Willems is done writing the Elephant Piggy books. So he came up with this series. By the way, and no joke, this was after American Library Association conference. I was at Atlanta, and the conference was over. I was going back to the airport, and it was right at lunchtime. I was getting some lunch. I'm looking out. There's no place to sit. And finally, I see a seat, and then I look over, and I see Mo Willems. I had met him twice before because I was on like a Caldecott committee that picked one of his books or whatever, so he knows who I am. I saw him. I know this is going to be hard to believe because I'm so talkative, but I'm kind of like introverted and shy when it comes to talking to authors. I have to do it because I give it a lot of deers, but I'm a little, I thought, oh gosh, what am I going to say if he sits with me, Well, there's no way he's going to sit with me. There's like hundreds and hundreds of people here, and there's no place for anybody to sit. So right when he gets done, ordering his meal, he's coming out. There's no place to sit. He's looking around. The woman right next to me gets up and leaves. So then comes Mo Williams and sits next to me and talks. But I'm glad he did, because this was right when this new type of book was being, he was done with the Elephant Piggy. What this is, I'm sure you might have seen him. Elephant and Piggy introduced, somebody else writes the book, not him. He does write these beginning pages, all right? So Elephant and Piggy kind of introduced the book. And then they also finished the book, at the end. And they're also in the end papers there, as you can see. So it's a series of I Can Read books that Elephant and Piggy are kind of like introducing, and it's kind of funny. The books are really funny. Now, the interesting thing that he told me at the airport was that he is now an ed. I said, what's your involvement? And he was, I think, maybe a little offended. I didn't know. But he's the complete ed. Like, he's reading the manuscripts. He's picking them. Okay, here's a guy who won Emmys for Sesame Street. He won, I don't have on this card, he won how many Geisel Awards, etc. And he also won awards for videos that they made of some of his books. And now he's an editor. Does he need anything? Some people have just entirely too much talent, don't you think? But I think this is hilarious. Honestly, I might even read this in a story time, even though it's an I Can Read, but it is really funny because it's about, it's shoe time. Today's a big day, time to choose shoes. It kind of reminds you a little bit of a corduroy. Like, who's picking the shoes? Because you remember corduroy had the missing button. Pick us, pick us, pick us. And when somebody comes in, they're all excited about who's going to pick them. They try to look nice. In comes a girl, and she says, I'll choose you and you. Well, they're not matches. Shoe and shoe. Wait! Stop! You don't choose matching shoes. She's like, well, one's left and one's right. No, but they're not the same. They're not a pair. And she goes off. And they're like, oh no, it's too late. They're gone. So the shoes they go and chase her down to try to catch her. And then here comes a little interlude with Elephant Piggy, And anyhow, they keep going, and this part is hilarious when they're chasing the girl. It's just, you trust me on this, it's very hilarious. Anyhow, finally we get to the very end. If I can finally get to the page where is the end. We're too late. Oh, there's Dad. Dad'll see. Dad will understand that she has two. So they're all excited now that Dad's picked her up. And he says, hi there, nice shoes. And she says, yeah, thanks, Dad. Look at his shoes. His don't match either. So that's the ending of it. I think it's funny. Really cute. Okay, her right foot is about the Statue of Liberty. I have seen the Statue of Liberty how many times? And I never realized that her right foot's lift off the pedestal. Did you all know that? Am I the only one that didn't know that? And that's not completely, this book talks completely about the Statue of Liberty, elementary grades, I would say. She in France, 1885, you probably remember that. She stands 305 feet above the water, weighs 450,000 pounds. It took 214 massive parts to be assembled to make this sculpture. But her right foot is lifted off the ground, which I did not know. And they explain that is like her going out to greet the boats or the people that are, she's greeting the immigrants. Immigration is a very hot button issue right now. So take that how you want, but it's kind of interesting that's why she was doing that. Okay, I've been a vegetarian since 1970 something. So I'm always looking for good vegetarian books, and there have not been any new ones for a while. This is, if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I've looked at this book last year, but I don't think the author is vegetarian. I don't know why, she was just fascinated by the subject, I guess. But it's not preachy, but it really talks about the diet and how you have to make sure you're getting enough protein, etc. So it's just a really good nonfiction book in vegetarianism. I think some more kids are doing that, I find out, so maybe you'll want one of those for your collection. This next one is very much a thriller book. It's perfect for middle grades up that like to think their science fiction might be kind of grounded in the realm of possibility. Now, This is, well, no, I don't like that idea. How do I, yeah, but what do I do to pick that? Do I? This is not my computer, so. Okay. Anyhow, it's the first of a series. It's going to be the Chronicle of the Dark Star series. The year is 2213. None of us will be alive then. I hate to tell you, but no matter how young you are, none of us are going to be alive then. The Earth has already been destroyed. The sun has turned into supernova. So everybody's residing on Mars. But unfortunately, what is happening is Mars is going to be the same fate as what happened on Earth. So 13-year-old Liam and his, I think it's his sister, I'm pretty sure, are ready to board the last spaceship Starliner to go to the next planet they're going to go to, which is Aru 5. Oh, it's his best friend Phoebe, not his sister, I forgot. Best friend Phoebe. They're waiting for the parents to finish their work at the research facility, and while they're doing, they actually miss this last Starliner. It's very much a thriller. I think kids will love it. This is funny. It's about Benjamin Franklin, but it's fun. This is my Candace Fleming. She's amazing. She writes picture books, Muncha, up to award-winning cyber, nonfiction, fiction. This woman can do anything. And this is Ben Franklin. I did not know this. Ben Franklin actually helped invent a toilet, which I did not know. But this is kind of done. It's two modern children are kind of Ben Franklin's time traveled forward, and two modern day children are showing him everything, and he's like, wow, I did this, or it shows what part he played in all these things. He did, they show him electrical appliances, the town's public library, which of course, that was his idea, the fire department, all these things. So, but I think Fleming does a really good job telling you what's factual in here, what's kind of added for fancy. It's funny and informational at the same time. This is another, if you don't already have it, you're going to want it for your story time. It's also Candace Fleming. It's go to sleep in your own bed. It's repetitious, and it can be a participation story. Now, I am a firm believer that you should use more participation stories in story time. That's good for them for narrative skills to get them involved. But basically, this poor pig, he finds somebody else in his sty, and he says, get up, squealed the pig, go sleep in your own bed. So the participation part for them would be go squeal in your own bed. So the cow goes on and finds someone in his bed, and he's like, get up, go sleep in your own bed. That keeps going and going and going and going, every animal, till we get to the very end, where the dog goes in and finds the cat sleeping in his bed. He tells him, get up, go sleep in your own bed. Again, repetition. And the cat's out there all by herself on the porch, oh drat. But here comes the little girl, here kitty, 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 and she picks her up. And she says, there you are, you can come sleep in my bed. Aww. And they snuggle in. Bedtime at the farm. This is, there's two books that came out, they were released simultaneously. Heartwood Hotel and The Greatest Gift, Heartwood Hotel. I'm going to talk about this true home. There's a mouse who's an orphan. She unexpectedly arrives at Heartwood Hotel, which is this tree that has this enormous heart carved in it. She crawls in and all these creatures live in there. And she's taken in, and she's very grateful for that. But then this one animal and her kind of have a little thing happen, and she's afraid she's going to be fired, and she sets out on her own. But when she sets out, she finds out about these wolves who are planning to crash their festival. So she needs to go back and try to save the rest of the gang. So it's a nice little series, nice little animal series, animal fantasy. We haven't had any really great animal fantasies for a while. I love this little series. Lisa Graff, The Great Treehouse War. This appears somewhat humorous, but I have to tell you, there's the very serious subject of divorce does come up in this, and how families deal with it. It's kind of an interesting book because there's a lot of footnotes and sticky notes and newspaper articles for them to read and emails, etc. But Winnie's mom and dad are getting divorced. They're extremely competitive, both in their careers, their parenting styles, and they do their custody agreement right down. Like, she gets to spend 3 days of the week with the one 3 days a week with the other. And Wednesday, they build, I know this sounds bizarre, they build this tree house, and that's where she stays so they both can have access to her. It's just a bizarre situation. And she realizes how bizarre it is. And so she stages this little protest, I guess you would say. And a bunch of her friends join her that have their own little problems, you know? And so it becomes the Great Treehouse War. It's kind of neat. This is Shannon Hale. And it's also a graphic memoir that focuses on childhood friendship. Shannon feels a little bit lost in her family. She's the middle child. And she doesn't feel like she fits in at school either. Now, she has, each one of the chapters is kind of fun. She has a book divided into sections with the name of a friend or a frenemy. And so she eventually learns how to find real friends and avoid those toxic ones. You know how that is when you're in middle school. Interesting thing is that the main character in the story has anxiety and mild OCD, and Shannon Hill admits that she did. So this is kind of based a little bit on her life. Okay, this is another one of those Elephant and Piggy books, where they introduce it. He was the editor. The good for nothing button, this button that supposedly does nothing, but it surprises the one, and the one animal says, well, if it's a surprise, that's not nothing. Again, tons of humor. I like this new series that he is editing. Okay, we're always looking for those funny poetry books, since Shel Silverstein's no longer with us, and, it's hard to find them. This one's called I'm Just No Good at Rhyming and Other Nonsense for Mischievous Kids and Immature Grown-Ups. This was illustrated by Lane Smith, which is the Stinky Cheese Man guy. And we have short poems and long poems. I'm going to read a couple short ones. Two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the less traveled by. Since then, I've been completely lost. Thanks for nothing, Robert Frost. Let me reach another one. I marked some here that I wanted to read. 37. They're just kind of amusing. I just marked some real short ones. 'Tis better to give something than to receive it. And if that thing's a black eye, then, yeah, I believe it. And one more. The Hungry Giraffe. You should never laugh at a hungry giraffe. It takes him so long to swallow, he may have eaten yesterday, but he's not going to feel full till tomorrow. So, just a funny book. Now, I know you're all familiar with the Warriors series. By the way, in case you don't know this, Aaron Hunter is not a person. If you wonder how Aaron Hunter published like 6 books in 1 year, it's a conglomerate of people. That's how the Nancy Drew books and the Hardy Boy books were done, with a conglomerate. It's conglomerate people that they use the name Aaron Hunter. And the Warrior series, of course, is very popular. In case you missed, last year they started a new series called Bravelands. And it's about a lion cub. His dad dies, so he should be the new leader, but he's being chased out by another lion, and he's actually taken in by some baboons. But again, these series are very, very popular. I think the kids will like it just as much as the Warrior series. All's Fair in Middle School is a graphic novel, her first graphic novel since she wrote Roller Girl, which won the Newbery Honor, if you remember that book. This girl has had years of homeschooling, and now her parents are going to put her in public school for the first time. She's really into the Renaissance Fair. Her whole family is. Her mom even has a booth at the Renaissance Fair. And when she gets to school, she's so excited, and that's like, she lives and breathes it. She gets to school and she finds out that doesn't quite fit in with the other kids in middle school. So again, it's another book for kids adjusting to people in middle school and how that all goes on. Okay, this is Martin Jenkins, not Steve, but Martin. And Stephen Beastie, we know how he does those intricate drawings. He's covering everything here from Greek astronomers to current scientists concerning how we can travel to Mars. It addresses risk to astronauts living in space, but the best part are going to be those large, intricate, detailed drawings. And it's a really great book for people who are visual learners. This is I would consider it more of a browsing book, like a guessing game book, but I kind of like it. Who am I? This is Steve Jenkins, by the way, and Robin Page, in case you don't know, is his wife. But it's, they've done a lot of books together. I have a sticky, flicky tongue, bumpy green skin, 2 bulging eyeballs, 10 webbed toes, a floating lily pad, and a fly for lunch. Who am I? Now, again, you could use this in a story time if you're doing something about animals, because it's very simple, but it just gives a bunch of clues. Then in the back, it has more information about the various animals. Some of you might remember this guy, I forget his first name, Khazar Khan. He spoke actually at the 2016 Democratic National Convention. Do you remember him? He was the Gold Star father who was kind of made fun of. And he pulled the Constitution out of his pocket and said he thought certain people should be reading it. But anyhow, this is an excellent book all about our Constitution. He finally wrote a book. He thinks people should know the U.S. Constitution. So the full text of the Declaration of Independence of the Constitution is in here. There's several landmark Supreme Court cases. It's going to be really good for nonfiction collection. This I liked a lot. This is how we do it, is one day in the lives of 7 kids from around the world. Like, this is what we eat for breakfast in Iran, Peru, Uganda, India, etc. This is how we go to school. This is whatever. This is how So it's really good, a comparison of how things are different. But one thing I like that the author does in this, he says, now, okay, just because this child from this country eats fish for breakfast doesn't mean that that's probably the common thing, but maybe not. Just like you might eat yogurt and somebody else might have cereal, somebody else might have eggs. I mean, a lot of people might eat fish, but not everyone. So I like the fact that he makes that distinction. He's trying not to stereotype, I guess you would say. This is just hilarious if you've not seen this book. 7, 8, 9. I'll just read a little bit of it. I was dozing in my chair when an urgent banging in my office door bolted me awake. It was 6. Something had scared the pants off of him. By the way, he's a private eye, get it? Yes. 7 is coming to get me, said 6. As a private eye, I'm used to his type. Numbers, they're always stuck in some kind of problem. But I knew about this 7 fella. He was odd. Take it easy, 6. I said, what's 7 up to? Word is on the street that 7, 8, 9, and now he's after me, said 6. Well, technically, he's always after you. There's 5, then there's 6, then 7. See, that proves it. I told 6 not to panic. Stay here. I'll get to the root of this. I hope so, said number 6. I fear my days are numbered. First, I went looking for 8. She's usually caught between 7 and 9. I found her at the corner of 2nd Avenue and 4th Street, but 8 knew nothing. Nada. Zilch. I love that one. It's true, 8 said. If it's true, 8 said, then I'm next in the line. A flash, she took off her belt. Now she looked just like a 0. Good disguise. I needed a solid lead. I strolled into the Cafe Uno. Anyhow, it goes on. The humor in this, I don't have time to read it all. It's just hilarious. And everybody's fine at the end. I'll just tell you that. Here's another new series, books, Max Tilt series. Anyone who likes adventure, well-developed characters, if they're into like Percy Jackson books, I think they'll really like this. There's 2 teens who are racing across the world to solve a treasure hunt created by the legendary author Jules Verne. When 13-year-old Max Tilt's parents are away, his 18-year-old cousin Alexandra is left in charge, and while exploring the attic, they discovered a chest that was once owned by Jules Verne, because the cousin's actually descended from him. And inside they find a set of clues to a long-lost manuscript. They're going to go off treasure hunting, but there's going to be some bad guys that are going to go on after them. go after them. So it's the first in a really neat series. I hope you all have this by now. This is the Groovy Joe dance party countdown. I love doing the disco party bow wow of kids. It's great for story time. If you remember, this is the guy, Eric Litwin. He started out doing the Pete the Cat books, and he and James Dean had a falling out, which I could tell you if you want to hear, I'll tell you after, so it's not in the tape. And then he started doing I remember seeing him after they had the falling out, and he says, oh, I'm going to do this whole series of books about nuts, the nut family, and I thought, But it turned out they're pretty good. But I love these 2. This is Groovy Joe, and so that's the newest entry in that. Okay, I don't normally talk about poop books. Whose poop is that? I have to tell you, though, this is really scientific. You can learn a lot from looking at poop. Believe it or not, different animals poop. I'm not joking. It's very well done. I know it sounds bizarre, but my brother does that. Like we were working at my mom's house, and he was identifying like, oh, well, that has to be, So some people follow this type of thing, I guess. Not only tracks, but also their poop. You can tell what kind of animals. And there's some little facts that, like, the kids learn a lot, but there's also some funny facts in for kids. Like, a rabbit sometimes eats its poop in order to digest its food twice. Just something we don't necessarily want to know, maybe, but there you go. Bang! This is definitely for older kids. And I tell you, this is one book I just could not put down when I started reading it. It's just hard to read, I guess you would say. When Sebastian was 4 years old, he accidentally shot and killed his infant sister with his father's gun. Now, his father's gun should not have been out there, obviously, or much less have a bullet in it. He struggles with this his whole life. It's a decade later. He's a sophomore in high school, and he's really having trouble still living with the guilt to this day. People still treat him different. They stare at him nervously, and he decides he's going to take his own life. Before that happens, he meets this girl, Anisha. She's a Muslim girl who moved in to this area. And she knows nothing about Sebastian. And they start bonding. And all of a sudden, he feels like he kind of maybe has a reason he does want to live. However, they both have a little bit of a falling out also. And now he's back to his original idea. But what part of the book that really, really moved me is he goes back and confronts both his father and his mother. He actually plans to kill his father because he feels it's his father's fault that he got that gun when he was a little kid, and then he has to bear with this the rest. This part was just so moving. He has to bear with it the rest of his life. And his father's there and has the gun, and they talk it out, and he doesn't kill his father. And he doesn't kill himself at the end either, by the way. But he also goes and confronts his mother because she kind of sugarcoats it. And so it's reading it, it's very psychological, it's very moving, just trust me on that. On a much lighter note, we have Barnyard Boogie. Another good one for story time. It's all these animals playing different instruments. It's done in rhyme, and the repetitious phrase is, but what can Cal do? Moo? So Cal doesn't have a part. At the very end, they need a conductor. Guess who the conductor is going to be? It's going to be Cal. Okay. If people need to know, like they have to read Newbery books and they need to know anything about John Newbery, it looks like a picture book, but again, it's elementary grades, I would say. But it's all about John Newbery. How when back in 1726, the books weren't so interesting for kids to read, and he decided to start making them more interesting with his history of little goody two-shoes. And just as you can imagine, a lot of the parents at that time were very much against these books. They thought the kids should be reading preachy, books that were preachy and taught a lesson. Spunky Little Monkey, just buy it. It's Bill Martin's long gone. Supposedly, I guess he had manuscripts remaining. I don't know, but it's the chant of like down, down, baby. You know that chant, and it's cute pictures, ding dong. It's going to be wonderful to read and act out in story time. Just trust me in that. Amazon Adventure is the Scientists in the Field series. These are very well done. Again, they've won a lot of awards. And this is about that tiny little fish who actually has saved the Amazon River because they clear out the stuff that would destroy it. But they're also like pet fish sometimes too. But it explains how they have saved the ecosystem. Here's another Frederick Douglass book. This one was written by Walter D. Myers. He's no longer with us either. So he must have had some manuscripts behind also. But this is done for, a younger audience. It looks more like a picture book, but again, it's going to be elementary. And actually, you could go the way up to middle school if they'll read a picture book. That's the problem. You can't usually get them to read picture books. But again, it's all about Frederick Douglass and his life. Frog Kisser is Garth Nix. You know how popular his books are. Princess Anya is in a bind. Her stepfather, Duke Reichert, is plotting to steal the crown. Her older sister's suitor has been transformed into a frog, and she has to try to find the lip balm that's going to make him back into a human again. This is a book for older kids, but it plays in fairy tales. So any of your kids that like books that are based like in fairy tales or folk tales, this would be a good one for them. But it's a fantasy, and it's done for like YA collections. This is another one of those graphic Diary of a Wimpy Kid imitators. But it's good, and I think kids will like it. It's another guy who writes a comic strip. His comic strip is called Off the Mark. That doesn't appear in my paper, so I don't know it. But it's, again, it's comical, good for reluctant readers. Any kids who like Wimpy Kids are looking for something else. This was the first one. There's some bathroom humor in it. Good pick for reluctant readers. This is the first in the series. However, I have series books over there, and the second one's already out. You'll see it's over there. Okay, I'm just going to quickly mention this. This is Jerry Pinkney's Three Billy Goats Gruff. There's a little bit of a twist in the end where there's a large fish going after the troll. There's a gatefold in this also, but one of the reasons I like this is because I think a lot of times kids do not know the story of the Three Billy Goats Gruff. I don't know if parents consider it too violent or whatever, but of course it's his beautiful large illustrations. This is Philip Pullman, who's a popular author, but this is also graphic. It's a graphic novel. It's a thriller. It has espionage, time travel, pirates, high-tech gadgets, explosions, a large cast of characters. There's a billionaire inventor. Again, I think it's one that kids won't be able to put down. This is a nonfiction book about Queen Victoria, who was probably one of the most influential rulers and led her country during a lot of great changes. She was the longest reigning monarch until now. Queen Elizabeth has passed her. But it talks about her father, how he died when she was infant, just everything. It's very well done. It's Catherine Reef. She's done a lot of biographies and also historical books for older kids. It has a black list of all the different British monarchs, a family tree, etc. Okay, this is definitely for older kids. It's a little bit of a hard read, very powerful. This is Jason Reynolds. In case you're not aware of that, every book that Jason Reynolds has written has got fantastic reviews or wins an award, as did this one. This is a Prince Author Award, a Critics' Cut King Author. Very heavy topic. He reminds me a lot of Walter Dean Myers, because he's the other person who hits those urban, gritty stories. 15-year-old Will sees his brother gunned down in the streets, and he's going to go out to avenge his brother's death. While he's leaving his apartment, he has his brother's gun tucked in his waistband. He travels down the elevator, and it opens at every single floor, and he actually meets on each floor a different figure from his past who was also a victim of gun violence, each important in their life. And they force him to face a lot of questions about what he's doing. It's done through free verse poems. It's very raw, very powerful on urban violence. This is Vincent van Gogh for young kids. And it talks about how he couldn't sleep at night, and he was always looking up at stars. And so that's how that Starry Night came about. But it's very interesting. It's about his early life, so it'd be a picture book biography of his early life. Kind of introduces some art history to young audiences also. And speaking about picture book biographies for elementary kids, here's one of Pete Seeger. And in case you did not know it, in case you ever questioned this, I will tell you that I'm actually friends with Laura Vacara Seeger, who has done a lot of books. I'm sure you're familiar with her. And she is married to a Seeger, obviously. That's why his last name was Seeger. And her husband was related to Pete. So they know him, they knew him very well. But there is another Pete Seeger book coming out. I'll probably talk about in the fall book look. But this one is one if you think and it talks about all the songs he wrote. Abby Yo-Yo, Michael Row the Boat Ashore, Where Have All the Flowers Gone? Where have all the flowers gone? This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And If I Had a Hammer, etc. Well, let's go in the role of biographies. This is on Dr. Seuss. So if kids need a picture book biography about him, again, elementary school ages, elementary school nonfiction. I will say this about the book, though. It does not get into any of the controversies about Dr. Seuss. It does not get into the fact that he did extremely racist cartoons. I like to think that he was a victim of his time, but Anyhow, it doesn't get into any of that. It's all the positive stuff, I guess. Well, no, it really is focusing on how he started writing. Now I Can Read books and how difficult they were. They came to him and asked him to do it. He really didn't want to. And then to make them funny, to make them interesting was difficult. Now this book, not only is it by Steve Sheinkin, who has won all kinds of awards for nonfiction, but I thought you might be interested because this is the Carlisle School, Carlisle, PA, and where Jim Thorpe went. He was considered one of the greatest all-around athletes in the world by his football coach, which is Pop Warner. But what's interesting, when they went to that Carlisle Indian school, they were forced to forget their Indian heritage. They were made to cut their hair. They were made to speak different. They were forced to be white. And so it gets into that heavy issue. Highly recommended, interesting on him, but also the history of that time. This is just a fun book, feel the beat. It's dance poems, all different kinds of dances, samba, cha-cha, square dancing. And there's actually a CD in the back of it with music, so kids could actually practice some of the dances to the music. I love this book because it talks about, it's a counting book. It counts up and back, counts up and then down again. But it talks, all these dogs are adopted. And thank goodness they're all adopted at the end. If only it were that way in the real world. But it's a nice count up, count down book. Excellent book for young kids on cancer. Cancer hates kisses. So for any young child that you might get a parent or someone coming in saying, my wife has cancer. Do you have any books that I can read to my child? This is a really good one for young. It's like a must-have book for young kids. You might know the documentary Girl Rising that inspired the book. This is for older kids again. Talks about that 2013 film Girl Rising and how, it discusses modern day child slavery, child marriage, gender bias, the lack of the fact these girls can't go to school or get to school when they want in these different countries. This is Tanya Lee Stone again. She's written a lot of wonderful books. Francisco Stork, a very popular author for teens. Again, this is heavy, so it's going to be for the older kids. 7 stars, though. It got all kinds of wonderful reviews, and it's really a thrower book. Sarah lives in Mexico, where crime and kidnapping and drugs are regular concerns. She's actually a reporter for a local newspaper, and she starts writing these profiles of these girls who have gone missing, including her best friend, Linda, who was taken 4 months earlier. Then she receives an email that threatens her life as well as those of her brother and mother, and she is going to tackle trying to find out who has been taking these girls and what's happening to them. It's part thriller, part sociological study. It sheds light on poverty, corruption, between the borders. Here's another Old MacDonald, because we don't have enough yet. This is Old MacDonald Had a Zoo. This is Isa Trapani. Now this is, do you know Isa Trapani takes the first verse and makes all these additional verses? And you see Old MacDonald gets all these zoo animals, and what happens? They escape from the zoo. He eventually, at the end of the story, puts them in his truck, loads them up, and takes them back. But it's done very cutely, and it would be good for story time. A good nonfiction book all about toads. I mean, it got a lot of really good reviews. How did toads develop? And it talks about how, actually, believe it or not, toads need saving. We're getting fewer and fewer toads in the world. So it talks all about, it's done in a nice, easy-to-read language, and enjoyable nonfiction book. This looks like a picture book, but I have to tell you, it's very, like a heavy subject, and it really would work for older kids if they'd be willing to read a picture book. It is all about the creation of the atomic bomb and how it was created. It was a secret project, the Manhattan Project. The scientists arrive at this place that they don't even know where they're at, or how this place even exists, and how they create this. I thought I pulled it up here. When the bomb explodes at the end, it's really a powerful book. I mean, black end papers. I mean, look at the end where the bomb explodes. It's just like very hard almost to look at. But it has, shows all that. So that's the secret project. Just 2 more here for 2017. We have Biggie, which is, okay, there's no more Elephant Piggy books, but because it's the 10th anniversary, they did this big volume that has I forget how many books are in. I'll read you the titles. Today I Will Fly, Watch Me Throw the Ball, Can I Play Too, Let's Go for a Drive, and I Really Like Slop. And here's the note where I have. Elephant Piggy Books won 2 Theodore Seuss Geisel medals and 5 honors. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk about for 2017 is called Beyond the Bright Sea. This really hits what the definition of a family is, and a young girl's struggle to find out who she really is. This author was the one who wrote the Newbery Honor book, Wolf Hollow, if you remember that. This is her next book she's written since that Newbery Honor. Crow, who's the main character in the story, has lived her whole life on this little sleepy island off the coast of Massachusetts. But she finds out that when she was a baby, only a couple days old, there was a lonely fisherman who found her moored on the rocks after being set adrift in this little shabby rowboat. The only place she could have come from was this other island, and on that island are nothing but patients and staff of a leper colony. So everyone does not want to get near her because they think she might have the disease. So she's trying to find out where she came from and what everything is all about. It's really a tearjerker, and it's kind of uplifting tale, and it kind of gives you the message that sometimes your family is the one you make and not the one you were born into. So those are some of the books. I purposely did not highlight a lot of the Calcotts and Newberries because I figure you probably already have them if you wanted to have them, but I tried to highlight some good books from 2017. And upcoming will be a tape on some good books from spring 2018.